In the Discourses, Machiavelli does not simply recount the past. He unveils the secret architecture of power hidden in the ruins of Rome and the councils of the ancients. These are not lessons for the timid, but weapons for those who dare to rule themselves, and through themselves the world. Not mere virtue as the common tongue knows it, but something far older, sharper, and more commanding. For Machiavelli, the word is not about morality. It is about force, mastery, and the capacity to shape events with one's own will. It is the essence of the individual who refuses to bow before circumstance, who molds fortune like clay, and who dares to etch his mark upon history. When you step into the Discourses, you feel at once that Rome itself was built not only on laws or armies, but on the invisible power of vert. The Roman Republic did not ascend by chance. It rose because men of vision, discipline, and daring harnessed their inner strength to master chaos. They understood, as Machiavelli teaches, that human destiny is not governed entirely by fate. Fortune may scatter its storms, but vert is the sail and the hand upon the rudder. Vert is the dangerous knowledge that power is not given, it is taken. It is not meekness, but a union of boldness and cunning, of courage and cold calculation. To practice it is to live as both lion and fox, to wield strength and deception with equal ease. Machiavelli, trained in the wisdom of the ancients, looked to the histories of Livy, Aristotle, and Polybius, not for comfort, but for weapons. He saw in Rome's founders, Romulus, Numa, Brutus, the living fire of vert. Each acted not in hesitation, but in decisive, transformative violence when the survival of the state demanded it. Yet vert is not only about conquest, it is about creation. To govern, to lead, to endure, one must forge institutions strong enough to withstand the storms of fortune. Machiavelli writes of republics, sustained by their virtuous citizens, men willing to sacrifice comfort for the higher order, women who taught discipline in the home, leaders who preferred hardship to luxury, because they knew that softness was the seed of collapse. Vert was not a single act, it was a way of life, a standard to which a people bound themselves. Think of Rome in its earliest days, fragile, surrounded by enemies, yet alive with ambition. It was not wealth that saved them, nor luck. It was the sheer will to survive, sharpened by discipline and unity. Machiavelli insists that without vert, a republic decays into corruption. Without it, liberty withers, and power slips into the hands of tyrants who exploit weakness. To embrace vert, then, is to embrace struggle. It is to accept that conflict is not an accident, but a crucible. Machiavelli saw that Rome's strength grew not in peace, but in the constant testing of its people. War, rivalry, and adversity forced them to refine their courage, to adapt, to strengthen their institutions. Vert thrives where there is resistance, it dies where there is ease. But beware, the practice of vert is not gentle. It requires sacrifice. It asks you to see beyond comfort, to measure life not in fleeting pleasures but in lasting influence. Machiavelli, in his careful reading of history, understood that the men who shaped empires were rarely beloved in their time. They were feared, envied, even hated. Yet centuries later, their names endure while their critics are forgotten. Such is the cost, and the reward, of vert. In the modern world, these lessons are no less urgent. To live with vert is to take control of your own fate. It is to recognize that fortune favors the bold, but only when boldness is fused with wisdom. It is to see through illusions of chance, understanding that opportunity comes to those prepared to strike. Ask yourself, do you wait for the world to shift in your favor, or do you bend it with your will? Do you crumble in adversity, or do you stand as Rome once stood, unshaken by storms, your hands steady on the sword and the law alike? Vert is not about the perfection of the soul. It is about the perfection of command. It is the dangerous reminder that history belongs not to the good, but to the strong, the cunning, the disciplined, and the fearless. And so Machiavelli's first key opens a door into the secret heart of power. For without vert, no republic can endure, no ruler can prevail, no individual can carve meaning into the stone of time. With it, the impossible becomes possible. Vert is the flame. The question is, will you dare to hold it, or will you let the winds of fortune decide your fate? That restless goddess, blindfolded and capricious, spinning her wheel with careless hands. To the masses, She is mistress of all things, the great arbiter of luck, chance, and fate. But to Machiavelli, trained in the wisdom of the ancients and sharpened by the harshness of political life, fortune is not absolute. She may rule half of human affairs, but the other half belongs to Virta, to the strength of will, the clarity of mind, and the audacity of action. The Discourses unveil this truth again and again. Fortune strikes hardest at those who are unprepared. Republics fall not because of the goddess's cruelty, but because of their own weakness, their failure to anticipate storms before they break. When institutions grow complacent, when leaders believe stability will last forever, they invite fortune's wrath, for she punishes the careless, the soft, the unwary. And yet, Machiavelli does not counsel fear. He counsels defiance. He writes as one who sees fortune as a river in flood. Left untamed, it will sweep away fields, cities, and lives. But with foresight and discipline, men can raise embankments, redirect the current, and channel her power to their advantage. Fortune is not to be worshipped or cursed. It is to be mastered. Consider Rome. Time and again, fortune tested her, invading armies, famines, conspiracies, betrayals. But Rome endured, not because the goddess was kind, but because her citizens lived with vigilance. They fortified their laws, trained their legions, and bound themselves to discipline. By doing so, they created a structure capable of absorbing fortune's blows. Where weaker states crumbled, Rome adapted and grew stronger. Here lies the dangerous knowledge Machiavelli imparts. Fortune favors those who prepare in times of calm. The wise man sees the storm before it gathers. The wise republic reforms its laws before corruption festers. The wise ruler strengthens his defenses before the enemy advances. To wait is to die. To act early is to bend fortune to one's design. But fortune is also opportunity. Her floods are not only destruction, they are also renewal. Machiavelli, ever the realist, teaches that bold men can seize fortune's turbulence to rise above others. Crises create openings that the timid overlook. Upheaval allows the cunning and the daring to ascend. In this sense, fortune is both enemy and ally, a dangerous force that either consumes or elevates. He warns, however, that fortune despises rigidity. A man who governs only one way, always cautious, always bold, always merciful, always cruel, will eventually be undone. For fortune shifts, and those who cannot shift with her are left broken. The greatest leaders, like Rome itself, change their nature with the times. They strike boldly when boldness is needed, and restrain themselves when caution prevails. This flexibility is the highest form of wisdom, and it is the true armor against fortune's whims. Imagine, then, the inner life of one who follows this teaching. He does not blame chance for his failures, nor does he pray for luck to deliver success. He studies, prepares, adapts. He lives as a commander of circumstance, not as its servant. When fortune strikes, he is ready. When fortune offers opportunity, he is waiting. In your own life, fortune surrounds you. The unexpected rises daily, betrayals, losses, shifts in fortune that seem to come from nowhere. Most curse their fate, but the disciple of Machiavelli sees the pattern beneath the chaos. He knows that fortune is not final judgment. It is the test, the battlefield where Vert must prove itself. And so the Discourses leave us with a paradox. Fortune is uncontrollable, yet not invincible. She is chaos embodied, yet she bends to those who refuse to bow. She laughs at the weak, yet she secretly respects the strong. For in truth, fortune is not a goddess at all, but a mirror. She reveals who is prepared to lead and who is destined to be swept away. Machiavelli's voice echoes across the centuries, warning, urging daring. If you would master fortune, you must master yourself. If you would tame the river, you must build the embankments before the flood. If you would seize her gifts, you must act not with hesitation, but with ruthless precision. And so we learn this eternal truth: fortune governs many things, but she yields to those who see her clearly, who act without fear, and who embrace the discipline of Vert. Fortune is the storm. Vert is the hand upon the helm. Between them lies the destiny of every ruler, every republic, and every soul who dares to shape the world. Not fragile experiments, but living organisms, breathing, struggling, rising and falling with the rhythm of centuries. To Machiavelli, the republic was not an idealistic dream. It was a brutal necessity. For only in the republic can power be distributed widely enough to endure the storms of fortune, while still being concentrated enough to command action. The Discourses reveal Machiavelli's obsession with the Roman Republic, that vast machine of laws, citizens, and institutions which endured the chaos of enemies, famine, treachery, and ambition. Why did Rome last so long while other states crumbled? The answer, he tells us, lies not in luck nor in wealth, but in the republic itself, its structure, its discipline, its balance of forces. For Machiavelli, the republic was the true safeguard of liberty. A single ruler may be wise, but he will eventually fall to weakness, corruption, or death. A republic, however, places power not in one man, but in the people, in the Senate, in the laws. It builds a framework stronger than any single life. Yet make no mistake, liberty, in a Machiavellian republic, is not softness. It is not the idle freedom to live as one pleases. It is the stern liberty of citizens who guard their rights through vigilance, sacrifice, and struggle. Conflict, Machiavelli insists, is the lifeblood of a republic. Where others see disorder, he sees vitality. The tension between Senate and people, between patricians and plebeians, did not destroy Rome, it strengthened it. Out of struggle came laws, rights, and institutions that bound the city together. Without that conflict, Rome would have decayed into tyranny. Here lies Machiavelli's dangerous wisdom. Peace without struggle is death, while struggle within order is life. But republics demand citizens avert. They require men and women willing to sacrifice personal ease for the greater order. A republic cannot survive if its citizens grow soft, caring more for comfort than for law. Once corruption seeps in, when ambition no longer serves the state, but serves only the self, the republic begins to rot from within. Machiavelli saw it in late Rome, when wealth and luxury dulled the hard edges of civic duty. He saw it in his own Florence, where faction and greed devoured liberty. The lesson is stark: republics are not eternal. They live only as long as their citizens remain vigilant. Liberty must be guarded with discipline, for the enemy of the republic is always near: tyranny, corruption, decay. And yet, in their strength, republics surpass kingdoms. A republic can field greater armies, command greater loyalty, and endure greater trials, because it draws power from the many, not the few. When threatened, a republic can call upon the pride of its citizens, each seeing his survival tied to the survival of the state. This unity gives it resilience that no single ruler could ever match. Think of the cycle Machiavelli describes: states rise, flourish, decay, and fall. But a republic, if guided with wisdom, can slow the cycle. It can renew itself through reform, through struggle, through the constant rebalancing of power. Republics may not live forever, but they can outlast tyrannies, for they are rooted in a deeper soil: the will of a people to govern themselves. Here lies the paradox Machiavelli offers: liberty is born of discipline. The citizen must obey the laws he himself has made. The ruler must submit to the limits imposed by the republic. And yet, within this order, true freedom flourishes. To be part of a republic is to be both bound and empowered, constrained and liberated. It is to live within a structure that magnifies individual strength into collective destiny. In your own life, the idea of the republic extends beyond politics. It becomes a metaphor for the inner order of the soul. Just as a republic balances Senate and people, so too must you balance passion and reason, ambition and restraint. Without order, chaos consumes you. Without struggle, weakness devours you. But with discipline, with vigilance, with the law of your own higher self, you can build an inner republic capable of resisting fortune. Machiavelli's discourses whisper to us across time. Republics endure where individuals falter, but only when the citizens themselves live with vert. Rome is both a warning and an invitation, an eternal mirror for every people and every seeker who longs to master themselves and their world. And so the truth lingers: republics are not safe havens. They are battlefields where liberty is won and defended each day. Their endurance demands sacrifice, their strength demands struggle, and their survival demands citizens who see beyond the self to the destiny of the whole. For Machiavelli knew, republics are not built by chance. They are forged by discipline, preserved by conflict, and sustained by the eternal vigilance of those who dare to defend their freedom. To the timid, it is chaos. To the wise, it is the furnace where strength is forged. Machiavelli, reading deeply in the histories of Livy and reflecting on the bitter struggles of Florence, saw what most fear to admit. Conflict is not the enemy of liberty, but its guardian. Without conflict, republics decay into tyranny. Without struggle, citizens grow weak. Without tension, institutions rot into dust. The discourses strike like iron when they declare this truth. Rome, the greatest of republics, was not shaped by peace. It was hardened in the endless clash between patricians and plebeians, between senate and people, between ambition and restraint. These struggles were not accidents, nor were they calamities. They were the very blood that sustained Rome's heart. From conflict arose new laws, new balances of power, and new strength. The plebeians demanded rights, the nobles resisted, and in that storm the republic found renewal. Tribunes were born from outrage. Safeguards against tyranny were written in the ink of struggle. Machiavelli reminds us, it was through the pressure of conflict that Rome avoided the chains of kingship and preserved liberty. Where others saw disorder, Rome discovered vitality. This is the dangerous knowledge Machiavelli dares to reveal: harmony without struggle breeds corruption. A state without conflict is a body without blood, lifeless, stagnant, doomed to decay. Conflict forces citizens to stay vigilant. It awakens their courage, sharpens their discipline, and binds them together in the act of survival. Far from destroying a republic, it purifies and strengthens it. But conflict must be contained within order. It must be guided by laws, shaped by institutions, and disciplined by custom. Rome endured because it gave conflict a channel, the Senate to restrain ambition, the assemblies to voice discontent, the magistrates to execute law. Unchecked conflict destroys, ordered conflict creates. Here lies Machiavelli's genius, not to abolish strife, but to harness it. Think of the legions, each soldier, disciplined, obedient, but also filled with ambition and pride. Alone, they might riot. Together, bound by law and command, they became the most formidable force in history. So too with citizens. Conflict, ungoverned, erupts in civil war. Conflict, governed, becomes the source of renewal. Yet Machiavelli is ruthless in his warning: once corruption takes root, conflict no longer saves, it destroys. When citizens no longer fight for liberty, but for personal gain, when factions no longer serve the republic, but their own appetites, conflict becomes poison. The same energy that once gave life now devours the state. Late Rome learned this truth in blood, as rival generals turned legions against each other, and ambition shattered the republic beyond repair. Still, even in this decay, Machiavelli sees the eternal pattern: conflict is unavoidable. The question is not whether it exists, but how it is used. Wise leaders accept it, even welcome it, for they know it sharpens and strengthens their people. Foolish leaders fear it, suppress it, or ignore it, only to find themselves devoured by it in the end. Apply this lesson to the self. Your inner life is a republic of its own, ambitions, desires, fears, and reason warring within you. To seek peace by silencing conflict is to stagnate. To embrace the struggle is to grow stronger. Conflict within, like conflict in the state, is not to be eradicated but mastered. From your own inner battles, you forge clarity, discipline, and power. Machiavelli's discourses whisper an eternal law: greatness does not arise from calm waters. It emerges from storms, from the clash of wills, from the fires of adversity. The Roman Republic was no delicate flower of peace. It was a battlefield of voices, sharpened by perpetual strife. That is why it endured for centuries while others fell in a generation. And so the truth lingers: conflict is not the enemy of liberty. It is its midwife. It is not the destroyer of republics. It is their secret guardian. To flee from conflict is to surrender. To embrace it, to channel it, to master it, is to walk the path of power. Machiavelli leaves us with this profound truth: only through conflict can freedom live. Only through struggle can strength endure. And only through adversity can men and republics rise to greatness. The spine of republics, the marrow of armies, the secret thread that binds power into endurance. Without it, liberty collapses into license, armies dissolve into mobs, and rulers fall into ruin. Machiavelli, guided by the lessons of antiquity, saw discipline as the hidden force behind Rome's ascendancy and the silent cause of its decline. In the Discourses, discipline is never mere obedience. It is the shaping of citizens into instruments of strength. Rome's greatness, he insists, did not arise from chance, nor from fortune's fleeting favors. It was born from the relentless training of its legions, the stern upbringing of its households, the unbending weight of its laws. From youth, Romans were taught that liberty required sacrifice, that citizenship was not a privilege of ease, but a burden of duty. Through discipline, they became more than individuals. They became Rome. Consider the Roman army. Unlike the mercenary bands that plagued Machiavelli's Italy, Rome's soldiers were citizens bound to their republic. They trained without ceasing, marched without complaint, endured hardship with pride. Their victories were not the gift of fortune, but the harvest of discipline. Each legion was a mirror of the republic itself, ordered, structured, relentless. When Machiavelli compared them to the mercenary companies of his day, he saw the vast gulf between strength and weakness, between survival and ruin. But discipline was not limited to the camp. It lived in the Senate, where debates raged with sharp tongues, but within strict forms. It lived in the assemblies, where citizens demanded rights but submitted to laws. It lived in the family, where fathers and mothers trained their children not in luxury, but in austerity, preparing them for the harsh demands of public life. This civic discipline was the soil from which Rome's liberty sprang. Without it, Rome would have been no more than another fragile city swallowed by fortune. And yet, Machiavelli warns, discipline is fragile. It withers in comfort, it dies in excess. The greatest enemy of republics is not foreign invasion but internal decay, the slow corruption that comes when citizens forget the hard virtues that liberty demands. Rome did not fall at once. It rotted from within, as luxury replaced austerity, as ambition served the self rather than the state, as citizens lost the iron edge of discipline and surrendered to ease. Here lies the Machiavellian paradox: liberty requires chains. Not the chains of tyranny, but the chosen chains of law, duty, and self-restraint. To live in a republic is to bind oneself so that all may remain free. Discipline is the invisible law that keeps liberty alive, for without restraint, freedom devours itself. Apply this to the self. Without discipline, your own life collapses into chaos. Desires pull you in 1,000 directions, ambition consumes you, fear paralyzes you. But when you impose order upon yourself, when you rise each day with purpose, when you master your impulses, when you bind yourself to a higher standard, you become formidable. Discipline transforms weakness into strength, chaos into clarity, potential into power. Machiavelli's education in the ancients revealed this eternal pattern: nations, armies, individuals, all rise or fall on discipline. Fortune may bring storms, conflict may sharpen, but without discipline, nothing endures. Rome teaches this lesson with brutal clarity. In its disciplined youth, it conquered the world. In its corrupted old age, it surrendered everything it had built. Do not be deceived by the allure of ease. Comfort is poison, indulgence is decay. The republic that seeks safety and luxury is already dying. The man who abandons discipline for pleasure has already surrendered his strength. The same law governs both. Without discipline, liberty is impossible. And so the discourses press this lesson upon us: discipline is not a choice, but a law of survival. It is the secret armor against fortune, the quiet strength beneath liberty, the stern teacher that turns citizens into guardians and men into masters of themselves. Machiavelli leaves us with a truth as hard as Roman stone. Discipline is the price of endurance. Without it, republics fall. Without it, rulers fail. Without it, you cannot hope to command yourself, let alone the world. The silent poison, creeping where vigilance weakens, rotting the pillars of liberty, devouring the marrow of republics. To Machiavelli, corruption is not merely a vice. It is the slow death of states, the hidden decay that no army, no fortress, no treasure can resist once it has taken root. In the Discourses, Machiavelli writes with ruthless clarity: the greatest enemy of republics is not the sword of an invader, but the corruption of their own citizens. External threats can be repelled by courage and discipline. But when the spirit of the people is corrupted, when the institutions are hollowed by ambition and greed, no salvation is possible without blood and renewal. Rome, Florence. Every city of history whispers this warning. What is corruption? It is the moment when ambition no longer serves the republic, but only the self. It is when leaders cloak their greed in the language of liberty, when citizens trade duty for comfort, when laws are bent for convenience until they no longer restrain at all. Corruption is not sudden. It spreads slowly, quietly, like rust upon iron, unseen until the blade shatters in battle. Machiavelli looked to the Roman Republic for his proof. In its early days, Rome was poor but virtuous, disciplined and austere. Citizens were willing to sacrifice for the state. Leaders feared dishonor more than death. But as wealth flowed from conquest, luxury followed. Families that once lived with simplicity fell into decadence. Offices once sought for honor were now purchased with bribes. Soldiers who once fought for the Republic began fighting for generals who promised them riches. Thus the seed of corruption bore its fruit. The Republic devoured itself until liberty gave way to empire. And Machiavelli saw the same pattern in Florence, his own city. He watched as faction tore apart its liberty, as private gain outweighed the common good, as corruption weakened the very institutions meant to preserve freedom. For him, corruption was not theory, it was lived experience. This is why his warning is so fierce. Once corruption reaches the heart of a republic, reform is almost impossible. Laws will not suffice, words will not heal. For the corrupted citizen will always find ways to twist reforms to his advantage. Only extraordinary measures, often violent, can restore the body politic. Rome expelled kings, punished traitors, and at times renewed itself through bloodshed. Without such severity, Machiavelli insists, a republic cannot return to its original strength. Yet even here, Machiavelli is not merely describing politics. He is unveiling a universal law. Corruption is the eternal enemy, not only of republics but of men. It lurks in the soul as complacency, as indulgence, as the surrender of discipline. When you abandon vigilance over yourself, when you allow vice to erode your strength, corruption spreads within you as surely as it does in nations. The decay of character mirrors the decay of states. And so the lesson strikes with brutal simplicity: corruption thrives where discipline fails. It begins in softness, in the small surrender to comfort, in the little compromises that erode principle. Just as Rome fell not in a single night, but through centuries of indulgence, so too does the individual collapse, not by one great failure, but by many small ones, tolerated until nothing remains. Machiavelli's voice, hard as Roman stone, tells us that corruption is inevitable in all things. But inevitability does not mean surrender. Republics can resist it through constant renewal, through conflict that refreshes liberty, through laws that check ambition, through leaders willing to sacrifice their own popularity to preserve strength. Individuals, too, can resist it by binding themselves to discipline, by renewing their vows to purpose, by refusing the poison of ease. This is the dangerous wisdom of the Discourses. Corruption cannot be ignored, it cannot be wished away. It must be confronted, punished, and purged, or it will consume everything. And so the truth lingers, darker than any other: a state without enemies may endure. A state with enemies may survive. But a state corrupted from within is already dead. For Machiavelli knew, fortune may break a republic, conflict may test it, but only corruption ensures its ruin. The fire that builds empires, the blade that pierces republics, the force that can raise men to immortality, or drag them into the abyss. Machiavelli saw ambition not as good or evil, but as the most dangerous and necessary of human forces. Without it, no man would risk, no city would rise, no republic would endure. With it, however, liberty itself trembles, for ambition does not rest until it has consumed everything in its path. In the Discourses, Machiavelli warns that republics must forever guard themselves against the ambitions of the powerful. For while the people desire only not to be oppressed, the ambitious few desire to rule. It is a truth as old as time: the masses long for safety, but the ambitious long for power, and the two are forever in tension. Rome offers the clearest example. Its earliest leaders sought glory for the Republic. Their ambition was harnessed by discipline. Their victories fed the strength of the city. But as generations passed, men began to pursue triumph not for Rome but for themselves. Generals like Marius, Sulla, Caesar, they clothed their ambition in the language of the Republic, but their true aim was dominion. Thus the liberty of Rome was undone, not by external enemies, but by the ambitions of her own sons. Yet Machiavelli does not condemn ambition outright. He is too honest, too brutal to indulge in such illusions. For he knows, ambition is the force of life. Without it, no republic can rise from weakness to strength. The early Romans, hardened by ambition, conquered neighbors, built laws, created greatness. The Florentines, too, in their better days, were ambitious in trade, in war, in art, and through that ambition, their city flourished. Ambition, then, is like fire. Harness it, and it gives warmth, light, life. Let it burn unchecked, and it consumes house and city alike. The task of statesman, Machiavelli insists, is not to destroy ambition but to discipline it, to channel its hunger toward the service of the republic, rather than the self. How is this done? Through laws, through institutions, through the constant struggle between the people and the great. For Machiavelli believed that liberty itself is born of conflict. The people resist the ambitions of the nobles resist the limits imposed by the people. Out of this clash comes balance, and from balance, freedom. Where ambition is unchecked, liberty dies. Where ambition is crushed entirely, energy and greatness vanish. Only in struggle can ambition be made to serve rather than to devour. And yet there is something darker here. For Machiavelli knew that ambition cannot be extinguished. It can only be managed. The ambitious man will always rise, always test the limits, always seek more. This is why republics must remain vigilant, why laws must be severe, why suspicion must never sleep. Rome endured for centuries because it punished those who threatened liberty with merciless severity. Florence faltered because it hesitated, because it allowed ambition to grow fat in the shadows of compromise. On a deeper level, Machiavelli's lesson on ambition is not confined to states. It is written for men themselves. Within every soul lies ambition, whispering of greatness, urging conquest, hungering for dominion. Left unchecked, it corrodes character, turning noble desires into greed, discipline into vanity. But bound with law, with discipline, with purpose, it becomes the very force that drives men beyond mediocrity into greatness. The balance is perilous. Too little ambition, and a man stagnates, content with comfort, enslaved by weakness. Too much ambition, and he burns himself and others in the fire of his own hunger. The art of power, Machiavelli tells us, is to wield ambition without being devoured by it. And so we see ambition as both savior and destroyer. It raises cities, topples empires, inspires revolutions, and enslaves nations. It is not to be feared, not to be praised, but to be mastered. Machiavelli leaves us with a truth as sharp as steel. A republic without ambition will wither. A republic ruled by ambition will collapse. Only the republic that binds ambition with iron laws will endure. For in the end, the fate of states, like the fate of men, rests upon this eternal struggle. Will ambition serve you, or will you serve ambition? The most fragile, the most coveted, the most easily lost possession of any people. For Machiavelli, liberty was not a gift handed down by rulers, nor a luxury granted by fortune. It was the very soul of the republic, wrestled into being by blood, law, and the eternal vigilance of its citizens. In his Discourses on Livy, he shows again and again that liberty is not sustained by speeches or ideals, but by conflict, by discipline, and by the constant restraint of power. The Romans knew this. They understood that liberty is never safe. It must be defended not only from external enemies, but from the ambition of their own leaders. Rome's greatness was built not because her people were docile, but because they were restless. Forever suspicious of the powerful, forever unwilling to surrender their voice. The very clashes between patricians and plebeians, which others might call disorder, Machiavelli calls the lifeblood of freedom. Out of those struggles arose laws, tribunes, and balances of power. Out of struggle came endurance. Out of vigilance came liberty. But liberty is dangerous knowledge, for it demands sacrifice. It asks that men place the good of the republic above their own comfort. It requires citizens who are ready to guard against tyranny, even when tyranny wears the mask of benevolence. Too often, Machiavelli warns, people sell liberty for promises of safety, trading the fire of self-rule for the chains of stability. Rome fell not because her legions grew weak, but because her citizens grew complacent. When the people ceased to guard their freedom, ambitious men seized it from them. Machiavelli insists that liberty cannot exist without laws, nor laws without force. A republic that tolerates corruption, that allows the powerful to go unpunished, is a republic already enslaved. Liberty is not merely the absence of rulers. It is the active presence of discipline, order, and accountability. It is maintained only by those willing to confront ambition, to resist corruption, to choose hardship over servitude. Yet liberty is more than politics. It is a condition of the soul. A man who cannot govern himself is never free, no matter what republic he lives in. He becomes slave to desire, to fear, to fortune. Machiavelli's wisdom pierces deeper than governance. It teaches that the mastery of the self is the foundation of all mastery. A free man is dangerous, because he bows neither to tyranny nor to weakness within. Still, Machiavelli knew how precarious liberty remains. It exists always at the edge of loss, one step away from ruin. Even the strongest republics fall when their citizens forget the price of freedom. Even the wisest rulers corrupt themselves when unchecked. The pattern repeats. Eternal liberty rises, grows, flourishes, and if vigilance falters, it withers. But for those who grasp this truth, liberty becomes something more than a political condition. It becomes destiny. It becomes a force worth defending at all costs. For in liberty lies not only the power of the state, but the greatness of the individual. The courage to resist oppression, the strength to carve one's path, the vision to live not as a subject of fortune, but as a shaper of it. Thus Machiavelli leaves us with the most dangerous lesson of all: liberty is never secure, never permanent, never safe. It must be fought for, defended, and renewed with every generation. A republic that forgets this truth dies. A man who forgets it enslaves himself. And so, in the last whisper of the Discourses, liberty reveals itself not as a gift of destiny, but as a trial of will. It is the reward of those who dare to struggle, and the curse of those too weak to keep it. The final truth lingers like a blade in the dark. To live free is to live in conflict. To guard liberty is to live awake. And to lose liberty is to lose everything. In the end, Machiavelli's Discourses are not a commentary on Rome alone. They are a mirror for all who dare to look. Each key, vert, fortune, republics, conflict, discipline, corruption, ambition, liberty, is not a fragment of history, but a law of existence, etched into the bones of men and the fates of nations. He teaches us that power is neither kind nor cruel. It is eternal, indifferent, waiting to be grasped by those with the courage to act. Republics rise not by chance, but by the strength of their laws. Cities endure not by peace, but by the struggle that keeps ambition restrained and liberty alive. And men ascend not by comfort, but by their willingness to discipline themselves, to clash with fortune, and to burn with controlled ambition. The Discourses reveal a truth as dangerous as it is liberating. History is not a dead thing. It breathes. It repeats. Its cycles wait for the wise to recognize them, and for the strong to bend them. Those who study it arm themselves with foresight. Those who ignore it walk blindly into chains already forged. Thus, Machiavelli leaves us with a command disguised as wisdom. Do not be passive. Do not be lulled by safety. Do not wait upon fortune. Forge your own vert. Guard your liberty. Fight corruption. Master ambition. And know that struggle is the price of freedom. For in the final measure, the Discourses whisper one eternal law. To rule the world, you must first rule yourself. And to rule yourself is the beginning of all power.